It's Erin. It's that time again, fitness Q&A video. Thank you for all of the awesome questions. I've chosen the top rated ones or the ones with the most likes, and we've gone across the board. So we're looking at muscle gain, fat loss, nutrition, supplementation. And what we'll do in the description below is place timestamps on particular topics, and that way you can just fast forward or you can pick and choose what you're very interested in hearing the answer to. So without further ado, let's get started with these questions. The first one is, I'm trying to grow muscle on my entire body, especially my legs. What is the key to muscle growth, please? I hear various things, but I'm not sure what the correct answer is. So there are 3 basic keys to growing muscle. Well, I would say 4. The first one is that you want to be in a caloric surplus, but it doesn't have to be like all the time. It's mostly before and after training. So really focus on getting enough protein and enough carbs before and after you train. So that's key number 1. The other one is eccentric range of motion. Or the eccentric portion of the exercise. So really focus on when the muscle is lengthening. So for example, with bicep curls, what you want to do is really control that negative portion or the eccentric portion of the rep, because this is where most of the muscle damage occurs. Don't think of damage as a bad thing, it's how we grow muscle. So you're going to create micro tears in the muscle, which are then replaced by stronger muscle fibers. So that's how muscle grows. The other key is putting mechanical or placing mechanical tension on the muscle. So make sure you're lifting heavy enough weight. So choose a weight that's heavy for those last 2 to 3 reps, but you can still do proper form with. So for example, if I'm doing bicep curls and I choose a weight that's too heavy, notice front of the shoulders and perhaps lower back, something else is gonna take over. So there's no point in lifting super, super heavy. Choose that really, really great weight that is difficult to do for the last 2 to 3 reps, but doable with proper form. And the last key to muscle growth is you want to place mechanical tension on the muscle, or increase the metabolic stress, or time under tension on the muscle. This means that isometric holds, slowing down that negative, and really slowing down the tempo along with that heavy weight is going to create those changes in the muscles that you're looking for. So with anything else, change it up every 4 to 6 weeks and try to employ these 3 keys each time you work out. The next question is, what would you recommend for someone coming back from training after an accident? What to focus on, or rehab tips in general? A lot of times we go through life and we'll have injuries here and there, or heaven forbid, there's an accident. When that's the case, keep in mind that you do have great muscle memory. So the muscle is going to come back a lot faster than the first time that you tried to put it on. That being said, if it's an injury that you suffer and it happens for some type of reason, either you're lifting too heavy, not using proper form, something happens with the equipment, it fails, that type of thing. When that's the case, I think it's a great idea to not start heavy. Of course, talk to your doctor, but really focus on using proper form and then switch to a lot of unilateral exercises, because if you're hurt, most of the time it's on the right side or the left side, so there's going to be a little bit of a lag between the two, especially if you happen to have a cast or you're immobilized for a little bit of time. So start with your non-dominant, or start with the side that has been injured, and work through proper form, good range of motion, and let that dictate the number of sides that you're doing on your healthy side. So unilateral training, it's going to allow you to go a lot heavier than placing load evenly on both sides, and you're going to have to really focus on mirror image training exactly the same on one side to the other. So that healthy side is not going to get like a super, super great workout to start with, but the goal is to bring both sides up. So you might have a little waiting on the healthy side while the injured side gets back to speed. What I found, and I've had numerous injuries just due to being a knucklehead and being an athlete and training and prep, is really tough. And what I found is that the injury always, when I look back, it had a positive effect on my overall training. And it's because, you know, a lot of times we're not aware of our form, and, you know, one side gets a lot stronger than the other. So it forces us to go back to square one and really focus on the fundamentals, focus on making sure both sides are working evenly, and you know, just be patient and really just work through and push yourself, but don't hurt yourself again. So take it easy, and you will. The next question. I'm not sure if anyone else had asked, and I know you do a lot of HIIT, but there are people out there saying HIIT is not good if you want to maintain muscle. Obviously, you have no problem keeping muscle on. So to burn fat and not muscle, HIIT or steady state. So it's funny because I tend to lean more towards HIIT, and I know there are a lot of people that really love their steady state cardio. And to be honest, I don't think it has to be one or the other. That being said, if you're doing a ton of steady state cardio, it can have a negative effect on gaining muscle or even maintaining muscle, because with that steady state, you're using a lot of the nutrients that could go towards building muscle, and you're just burning them off on the treadmill. So the other thing with steady state is that it's very tough to continue to make progress with it, because if you're doing 45 minutes of steady state today, next week or the week after, you may have to do an hour just to see the same results. The human body is incredibly adaptive. So, you know, essentially it's like training for a marathon, right? You start out with a couple miles, you go to 4 miles, 5 miles, 10 miles, and, you know, your body is not going to hold on to the muscle that it's not using to do this steady state cardio. So it's pretty easy to burn off, you know, what the body deems as unnecessary muscle. HIIT, on the other hand, is amazingly versatile. So you can do shorter sprints, you can do longer sprints. You don't have to do them at the track. You can do them on any piece of equipment or anything you can go all out on. That being said, if you are on a keto diet or if you're using fats for fuel, it's a lot more difficult. So you have to look at the nutrition behind it. So if you're not taking in carbs, you don't have those glycogen stores necessarily in the muscle, which makes HIIT incredibly difficult if you're on a low carb diet. So what you might want to do at that point is your steady state, but make sure you're really switching up that steady state. And you might want to look at even interval training, which is a set period of time where you're going a little bit harder and then you're getting your active recovery. So you might do like on the bike, you might pedal hard for 2 minutes, rest for 2 minutes, that type of thing. So HIIT's awesome for gaining muscle, because what it's going to do is each time you push yourself a little bit harder, you're actually increasing the number of mitochondria in the cells. So that is going to help with your metabolism. It's going to help with getting stronger. There's so many benefits to HIIT. So your metabolism is revved 24 to 48 hours afterwards. So if you can do HIIT once or twice a week, you're going to see really great benefits from that. But just make sure that you're eating the right diet that's going to support doing the HIIT workouts. The next question, this person says, I'm obese, 260 pounds, and I don't know how to do a correct meal plan. I've heard that preset calculators don't work for obese people. Is this true? If so, how do you adjust the macro calculators on the websites? This is a great question, and I think a lot of times we're pretty set on having this ideal set of macros or this ideal calorie range, when I don't necessarily think this is the case. And if you are overweight, your metabolism could be slower. Again, this is something that you might talk to your doctor about. Make sure all of your levels are good and make sure that you're healthy. If you are healthy, then perhaps start with a moderate macro ratio. So like maybe a 40-30-30, or you can even start with something like a little bit more extreme, like a keto diet. So if you're looking at that, then you're going to be at least 65% of your calories are going to come from good, healthy fats, and then about 30%, 25-30% would come from protein, and the rest would come from your carbs, like vegetable carbs. So something like a keto diet might help jumpstart your progress. So they're really awesome for fat loss, really great for improving your insulin sensitivity, and overall can just get you jazzed about going forward and losing fat. So losing fat is the goal here. That being said, I would say try not to focus so much on your calories. So, and I know that there has been a stress on this, that calories are important, calories in, calories out, but think instead about your circadian rhythm. And what I mean by this is when you're waking up, your metabolism, everything like is running higher. If you're working out, your metabolism is going to be boosted temporarily. When you're getting ready for bed, as the sun starts to go down, you're winding down for rest and recovery. It's not a time to be eating a lot of food. So the majority of food should be eaten earlier in the day and around times of training. So if you have that same amount of calories, let's say you're at 2,000 calories and you're eating more of your calories at night, everything is going to slow down at night. So you're not going to have the boosted metabolism. You're not going to digest things as quickly. And in turn, if you go to sleep on a full stomach, you're not going to recover and you're not going to sleep as well, which means you start that process all over again. So look at perhaps, for fat loss, starting with a ketogenic diet, or starting with eating the majority of your calories earlier in the day and around times of training, and really tape off that caloric intake to having your last meal at 6 or 7 at night and having it be a smaller meal, and perhaps cutting out your carbs at that last meal, because you think carbs are fuel, and if you're eating fuel 8, 9 o'clock at night, where are you going? You're going to bed. So it's a lot easier for the body to store things as fat later on in the evening. So meal planning, macro calculating, this is science, but it's also art. You want to make sure you keep your proteins high, and make sure that you're tracking your progress every week with something like measurements or pictures, because the art part of it is going to require tweaking. It's never a one-size-fits-all type of thing. So you may have an especially fast metabolism and be overweight, just might not be timing things correctly. So give that a try. Start with one meal plan. Start with eating the majority of your calories when you're most active, and not eating later in the day, or eating a lot less later in the day, and try to get some time in between dinner and bed to where you're resting and digesting when you go to sleep. So keep track of it, and keep at it too, because it may take a few tries before you find something that works for you. Something works for a few weeks, maybe a couple months, and then it stops working. And that's kind of the fun of it all, is that you want to continue to find the right ways that work for you. Next question. What are your thoughts on intermittent fasting and muscle building / maintaining? Or fasts of any length in general? Have you personally ever incorporated some type of fasting? Great question. So there has been so much buzz about intermittent fasting and how to do it. And yes, I do fast, and I've tried a number of different ways, and the way that works for me now is to eat the majority of my calories during the day and have that last meal at 5 or 6. And what that does is I try to do a 12-hour fast, but it's not always as simple as eating between the hours of 8 o'clock in the morning and 8 o'clock at night. And that's because if you have your last meal at 8 o'clock at night, you might not be fully digested until midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning, and you're gonna wake up and eat at 8 o'clock in the morning. So you're really only fasting for 7 hours. So you're not really getting the benefits of intermittent fasting. I have tried moving the eating window. So a lot of people will eat maybe at 12 o'clock or 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and then they'll stop eating at night. And what that does is it doesn't go in line with the natural 24-hour rhythm of things. So if you're not losing weight, it may be because you're eating too much too late at night. And looking at muscle building and maintaining. So I think the key here is to be sure that you're not limiting your overall caloric intake. So with fasting, you want to make sure you're eating the same amount. You're just squishing down the window of time to where you're not eating and grazing, all day. But if you're in a state of caloric restriction, so if you're in a deficit and you've strung out your meals, so you're doing like 6 or 7 or even five meals, and they're strung out and you're just not eating enough, this is where you're going to lose that muscle because you're not giving your body enough fuel during that eating window. Now, if you're eating, let's say from 8 o'clock in the morning until 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock in the afternoon, then you're going to maintain, or you can even build muscle, assuming that you're running a maintenance or maybe a slight surplus. But you've timed things to where you're allowing your body to rest and recover, and you're going to sleep a lot better, and everything works with, the circadian rhythm. We get into trouble with training later at night, or if someone works a night shift, or let's say you're up at 4 o'clock in the morning. So the key with unusual schedules is to make sure you stay on that unusual schedule all the time. So your body clock will reset, but it can't be, what do we call it, social jet lag, to where if you're following everything to a T and you're on this same schedule, if you're working the night shift and your schedule's completely flipped, and then you get to the weekend when you're off and you switch to the day shift, and that just throws your body off. So the body really likes routines, and so whatever it is that you're doing, as long as you're doing it to where you've got a little bit of a shortened window, and I like to do the 12 hours, but I stop eating a couple of hours or 3 hours before that window starts, knowing that I will be fully digested then and that I'm truly fasting. Now, with fasts, if you're trying to gain muscle, keep the window to a shorter period of time, like that 12 hours. Keep in mind too that if you love your diet soda, if you love coffee, whatever it is, if it's sweet or you're chewing something, that can start the digestive process. So that kind of starts the clock. So if you're fasting, make sure that you're really fasting and you're not waking up and having an energy drink or having a cup of coffee or having something sweet, like a stick of gum even, that could mess things up. So, if you're gonna do it, make sure you do it. We can do another video on it if you want to see a full video on sample meal plans and that type of thing. Just leave a comment below and we can do that. Next question, can we achieve just as good of results training at home versus training at the gym? Also, the best exercises to target the butt when it's especially hard to isolate and you tend to feel it in your quads more. Okay, so 2 questions. Can you achieve as good of results at home as you would at the gym? So I'll say it depends. It depends on what kind of equipment you have at home. Your isolation exercises, your sculpting exercises that you would typically do with machines, for example, like leg curl, leg extensions, are very hard to mimic at home. That being said, if you have a great set of dumbbells, if you have a bar, if you have resistance bands, you can really achieve a lot, and you can substitute a lot of cool exercises for ones that you might find at the gym. Back day is incredibly difficult to do at home. So the motion of doing a lat pull down, certain types of rows, that can be really tricky. So I think if you have a great at-home gym where you have the ability to set up resistance bands and you get that tension on the muscle and you have an open space and you have a space that you can go to and just train, so it's not something where you're pulling stuff out of the closet, or, you know, rearranging your garage to have to do stuff and you have a ton of steps in order to get your workout in, you can just go get the workout, then yeah, you can achieve really, really great results at home. But you have to be motivated, you have to have good equipment, and you have to set a good routine for yourself. It's easy to just put something off if, you know, if you don't have that motivation. So at the gym, I think is probably ideal if your goal is truly doing something like a competition or something where you need those sculpting exercises. So the next part of this question is best exercises to target the butt. So with the glutes, you want to make sure that you've got that mind-muscle connection, because you can go through every single booty exercise and you're not going to get any kind of great result because other muscles will take over. So make sure that you've got that mind-muscle connection. One of the best ways to do that is just doing body weight hip thrusts. So this is where the back of your shoulders is on a bench or on an ottoman or on the couch, wherever. You can do it at home. It's probably a good idea if you start with these glute exercises at home. A lot of people look up when they're doing hip thrusts, so look down. So set your gaze to the floor, or, you know, something ahead and like slightly down in front of you. And then what you want to do is you want to make sure your heels are close enough to your body. So you feel it in your quads when you're doing hip thrusts and glute bridges when your feet are too far away from you. And you'll feel it in your hamstrings if you're not set up properly. So bring your heels in as close to your body as you can, push your weight through your heels, and then tuck your chin slightly, and then think about rotating your pelvis. So tuck your pelvis up. And what this is going to do is it's really going to help you contract and get that mind muscle connection with the glutes. And start with bands, start with body weight, and start slow. And as soon as you feel that activation, really work on the activation, work on that mind muscle connection, add weights from there, and you're off to the races. You can activate your glutes anytime. So washing dishes, think about tucking your pelvis under and really squeezing your glutes. That's a really great way to activate the glutes, and it's something that you can kind of wake them up any time of the day. The next question, how do you stay motivated all year round? Keep the positive vibes coming. Yes. Okay, so motivation, where does it come from? We have intrinsic motivation, which is internal motivation, and then there is extrinsic or external motivation, and that is something that you see on a meme or like a poster or a quote that you read. You're like, yeah, this is something that is very temporary. So the external motivation is not something that is going to keep you going, keep you fired up. What you want is internal motivation. This is something that comes from the heart. This is something that you do for you. It's a personal goal. It's not something where you're seeking approval. This is something that is just for you. It's your why. So think about your why. And a lot of times we know what it is. We just haven't written it down. The why is that spark to the fire of motivation. And write it down. You know, and don't choose something that is kind of shrouded in self-judgment, like, oh, I want to lose weight. What does that mean? It's like a moving target. You might lose 5 pounds. Are you going to be happy? I mean, who knows? So pick something tangible. And if you do a competition, don't just say, I want to win. I mean, of course we all want to win. What does that mean? I want to put a 1/4 inch of size on my shoulders. I can see 2 of my abs. I want to see 6. You know, I want to be able to climb a flight of stairs without getting out of breath. I want to be able to carry all my groceries in one spell. Whatever it might be, set a tangible goal and set your reason why. And you will never run out of motivation. And keep in mind, as you reach one goal, celebrate it and continue moving on. And what I like to do, what keeps me motivated, is to really set this long-term kind of crazy goal and then set little mini milestones on the way. So it's not as daunting, right? If you look at the top of this mountain that you want to climb and you have a set of spots along the way that are small victories. And with that, even if you never reach the top of that mountain, you're going to be at a much higher and better place than you would if you set a mediocre goal or set a goal that, you know, like to lose weight, which it's just, where do you figure out where that end place is? So think about your why. That's your spark. That's your motivation. That's the fire. And that's going to keep you going. And when you do something for you, now it's going to help others too because you're bettering yourself. But choose something that is just for you and just go for it. And you will see awesome results. You'll stay motivated and you'll be successful. That is it for all the questions. If you like this video, please consider subscribing and don't forget to click that little bell. You'll be the first to know whenever a new video comes out. And if you try any of these tips, please tag me on social media. I love to see your hard work and love to see your progress. Thanks for watching. Until next time, train hard, y'all.